Good afternoon, everybody. I'll share my screen and show you Image Pro. And I want to show you the movie making functionality of Image Pro. It's not a new feature. That feature existed for a long time, but maybe some of you are not familiar with that. And I'll show you how easy to make 3D animations in Premiere Image Pro 3D. So I'll load one of the existing demo images from Image Pro demo images folder, 3D measurement, neuron as 3D. And when I load it, we'll get 3D stack of neurons with some isosurfaces created by guided segmentation. I want to use this image as an example to show how to create animations. So animations can be created when we have any 3D view. So before you create animation, we should have all the elements which we are going to use in animation. So before creating animation, you should think what do you want to show, and if you want to show slices, you have to create slices beforehand, and if you want to show isosurfaces, you should create isosurface beforehand elements and then place them in the right order, and think about all the steps for animation. Just know that if you have auto slice after isosurface, this auto slice doesn't cut through isosurface. If you have auto slice above isosurface, this auto slice will cut isosurface as well. So, so you should think on the position of the elements and the number of the elements in your scene. So what I will do, I will try to make animation that would include fly-through path and then some slice of the isosurface revealing our slice through the volume revealing our isosurface. So before creating animation, I want to set the parameters which I think would be the best for my image. I reduce transparency. Also creating animation, I would recommend increase number of slices in the composition to maximum so you get the highest quality image. And I would also use pseudo surface, which would enhance neurons definitions. So the animation in Image Pro is created based on keyframes principle. So what we need to do, we just add keyframes to the animation, and the program interpolates all the parameters between frames to make smooth transitions from one keyframe to another keyframe. Transitions are, we include everything, so it could be just position, camera position transitions, or it could be transition of slices, it could be transitions in transparency, it could be transition in opaque levels of the palette. Everything can be animated. So I will start from this view, and let me make this XY view as a starting point. So we position image like this, and we activate 3D animation tab and say that this is our first camera position. We click add camera position, so you see the first keyframe had been added, and by default we have 8 intermediate frames. So to the next transition, every 8 frames would be added between 2 keyframes. The number can be changed, and it can be changed globally. I'll show it later. But default 8 frames could be good to create initial animation. Then we can, for example, change position and maybe zoom in and add another keyframe. That would create keyframe number 2. On the next step, I want to show either surface and the frame and ortho slice, and I want to start from this point. So I add this keyframe with either surface and ortho slice on top. I don't want to have any transition between showing the volume and showing the either surface, so I reduce number of keyframes, number of intermediate frames between these 2 keyframes to 1. So I just simply click and drag. So these 2 frames will change immediately. On the next step, I want to move slice down, revealing either surface. At the same time, I can, for example, make it tilt a little, and I add another keyframe. So when it's created, we may create animation flying in a little bit just to get closer to neurons. We click this animation, and then we can, for example, move out and create the last frame. So when we have connect, start, and end checkbox on, the last frame will be connected to the first frame, so creating a smooth transition. And that would help creating a loop animation, so you can play this animation in media player in infinite loop, so you can use it on a show or somewhere else. So now we have 6 keyframes in our animation, and let's see how it works. We can go to the first frame, and we can go through frames one by one to see how they look, or we can play from the beginning. So that would be our animation which we have just created. And at this stage, if we think that everything looks good, we can generate a movie and then save it to an MP4 file. But before, I want to show you some other options which could be useful creating animations. First of all, it's a number of frames. Number of frames, we use default 8 frames transition between keyframes, and with frame rate of 10 frames per second, it's less than a second. So we have like 6-second animation. So you can see it at the bottom of the animation panel. You can see 4.1 seconds. This is our full animation. We can increase number of intermediate frames, making animation longer. So it will create smoother animations between frames. And another option, we can change animation size. If use fixed image size is off, the animation created using the actual size of 3D window. If you want to use, for example, full HD animation, so we can just simply type 1920 by 1080, and it will create a full HD animation which you can play on a full HD screen with high quality. But for the simplicity's sake, I will switch it off and try to create animation with the current size. So to create animation with the current size, we simply click the movie button, and now the program will create our new animation with 81 frames using all the transitions we just recorded. So now we are flying in, going up, and now we are returning to the initial position based on this connect start and frame. Here we have an animation file just created. This is just a sequence of 81 frames. We can play it through in the viewer as it is, and we can save it to an animation file. By default it will be MP4 file. You can also use WMV format or AVI format. I recommend MPEG-4 file, as it produces movies with good quality and small file size. So I can simply add some suffix to, and now we have animation. I want to just show you the location where we save the animation. That is the files. This is a file. It's 6 megabyte. When we double click, we can play this file in the movie player. And yeah, when you have this repeat on, so we have an infinite animation played in the viewer. This animation you can easily send to customer or use for your own purpose. And that was a quick tutorial for how to create animations in Image Pro.